in the middle of one crisis after the other crisis. For several months, while we were celebrating hardly any cases in the country, doctors were telling us, be wary, it'll come back, it's going to come back, it's going to come back. We didn't believe them. Now, as we were fighting for Remdesivir, which was a ghost we were chasing, hopefully we'll stop chasing that ghost now, and a very real fight for oxygen and beds, which is continuing if you are in the national capital, and I promise you, it has begun elsewhere. In the middle of all of this, doctors have been telling us, beware of doctors being fatigued and burnt out, because you can eventually get the oxygen. You can put up cots that can serve as beds. Where do you get the people who are going to look after the patients in those beds? Now, as all these doctors have been telling us, generally by rule of thumb, there are 2 or 3 hospital staff for every single bed, especially if it's an ICU bed or a bed requiring constant monitoring. So you can put up 1,000 beds, so that means you're assuming that you need another 2,000 trained staff. For some basic things like turning an oxygen up and down and giving steroids, basic training is pretty easy to do. But for people requiring ICU level of care, it's not going to be easy to do. And the reality check is that doctors, vaccinated or not vaccinated, are also falling sick, and they themselves now can't get beds for themselves, their own family members, in their own hospitals. Even if they own their own hospital, can't get a bed. People who own testing centers and facilities are finding difficult to get their own families tested in their own testing centers. And now we've had one incident, at least in Gurugram, where absolutely exhausted and burnt out doctors simply left, couldn't handle it anymore. We've lost one gastroenterologist, a senior gastroenterologist at Dr. Batra's hospital for the want of oxygen just this afternoon on Sunday. So a very real crisis is coming our way, one after the other. Let me open up this conversation. Padma Shri Professor Dr. Mohsin Wali is with us, Dr. T.S. Clare, who's Chairman, Fortis Heart and Vascular Institute in Gurugram and Vasant Kunj, Dr. Ankita Baidya, she's MD and DM Infectious Diseases at AIIMS, and Dr. Ishwar Gilada, Infectious Disease Expert, is joining us in just a bit. Dr. Wali, doctor burnout, fatigue, by doctor I mean all medical staff burnout and fatigue. Just the sheer trauma of it, the exhaustion of it, and the reality of the fear, because if you fall sick, you know yourself that treatment in your own hospital is going to be difficult. What do we do?
In the previous 15 months, Rishabh, thank you for starting this discussion. I think your channel would be the first to do it, and I compliment you for that. I was telling repeatedly, and most of us were telling repeatedly, that the last casualty would not be oxygen, would not be beds, but would be doctors. You know, in the medical education, wherever we are trained, we have been taught one thing by our seniors and teachers, respected teachers, that you don't have to say no. And in our career, all these people who are on your program will agree with me that the doctor is the last person to say no to anyone, be it duty, be it some other social help or something else. And that is what was serving our country. We have worked overboard. Most of the doctors and nurses have worked overboard to the extent that they have not gone home for days. Initially, you must be seeing they were staying in hotels. And the nurses also, they have not removed the mask for the whole time of their duty of 8 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours, without eating anything. And I would say I salute them for working overboard. And I was repeatedly telling in the current programs that we have to care for this force. This is the force we need most, and there will be hardly any substitute for it. We cannot grow doctors in flower pots or in fields and farms. So now we have started seeing the casualties. This is two great lessons we have to learn today, is that one of our senior colleagues has left us, and Dr. Batra, as you said, he was speaking on NI, and the other group of doctors at Gurugram have shown, this is not they have shown, you see, they are helpless. This is the last resort, you see. Since morning I'm on phone. I'm getting calls. I ate my lunch in my lab while I was attending my call. So this kind of atmosphere is unimaginable in which we are used to work. Dr. Clare would work in cath lab. He would not leave the cath lab for 20 hours, 22 hours, like that. It is very usual for us. This is what I'm trying to say, that Dr. Ankita would sit in her lab if there is work. Dr. Clare will never leave his cath lab if the life is being saved there. He's doing angioplasties or heart attack patients are coming. Corona patients are coming. Every doctor has become corona specialist. This is the proud of our country. We all are advising patients and we are correctly doing it. And because so many lives are saved. So I'm just winding up by saying that this is the force. The government has to look at it and has to provide minimum working conditions in the hospitals, beds to take rest. You see, there's no bed for the patient. How can we ask beds? So this is a peculiar situation which was expected. It has now started. It will grow further, and this is an eye opener.
Absolutely right.
And one of you has left Aaj Tak, that senior editor, that Dangal program, and he was very healthy. He was a regular visitor to the gym. Rohit left us.
Yes.
He was very healthy.
I've lost a colleague working with us this morning.
Yes.
Our Noida correspondent, another colleague of us, used to work this a couple of years ago, worked for a different channel, now died this morning, and he was, I think, my age, in his mid-30s.
So many.
Yeah, so, but in the end, it coming down to what is possible versus what is not. Dr. Clare, what are the tasks that now can be handed over to a certain level of trained manpower? Because for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to do this kind of stress load is possible. After that, it's simply not going to be possible. And I think we are now reaching end of tether. So what can we do to rationalize things now?
First of all, Rishabh, I also compliment you for bringing this topic. I think the first channel to bring this topic is the medical fraternity, fatigue. And I tell you one thing, that in my 40, 50 years of medical career, this is the most challenging time for a doctor, for a healthcare worker. I don't think we have seen like this before. It is just like, the army people facing guns from the opposite country in a war with China or with Pakistan or whatever, and the bullets are on and you are standing there. It is stories like that. And I tell you one thing, that, in general, I am very fearless, and I am not scared of death. I'm not scared of any small thing. I try to do my best, but let me tell you one thing, that now the situation is, my personal situation is, that not being able to help those desperate calls and desperate people in need of help, of medical help, is really, very stressful on me, and it's very demoralizing that I'm not able to do what I want to do. There is a patient of some patient he had to shift to ICU in Fortis Basant Kunj Hospital, and I've been trying to tell the intensive care doctor and this and that. So there's no bed. And he just told me that, sir, so-and-so doctor's real brother, his saturation is 80%, but the patient you are talking about, his saturation is 88%. So I need to shift the other patient first. So what can you do? This is the kind of situation. So but ultimately the thing is that, what is the solution? Right now, everybody can tell the problem, that we have to come with the solution. Now the solutions are, in my opinion, first of all, I think we all need to encourage the doctors, the nurses, the healthcare workers, and tell them, some pat on the back, that, my dear, you are doing a great job, and this is these are the hour. Have patience, have courage. Ultimately, God will help us. Number one. Number two, we need very, 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 very actively, very fast, we need to bring in doctors of other specialties to share this burden. For example, COVID is not something which is a rocket science. Even the orthopedician can be trained to treat a COVID in 30, 40 minutes of lecture. Oxygen, these are the drugs. And only those patients who are on ventilator, they have to be looked after by the anesthesiologist and the critical people. But all other patients don't waste the critical care and the anesthesia people on those patients. They should be subjected, they should be left to only very, very sick patient. Other patients, we have to share the burden, tell the gastroenterologist, tell the neurologist, orthopedician, neurosurgeon, sorry, to chip in and share this responsibility so that the fatigue doesn't occur.
Okay, Dr. Baidia, on practical terms, like I said, in any desperate situation, couple of weeks, 3 weeks, you can stretch yourself to exhaustion. After a point, let's face it, there is a brain fatigue that takes place. You start making mistakes, and any mistake that makes, of course, is can be deadly. So it's like there's the reason airline pilots are asked to rest. And people who do sensitive jobs are asked to take rest, because after a point the brain requires sleep and rest, and there's so much trauma going on. In practical terms, ma'am, now that we know that we are in this position where you can increase beds, you can get the oxygen, whether you ship it from different parts of the world, what do we do about human power?
I completely agree with Dr. Craig that we can pool in the different specialties. Right now, we know that the physicians are limited in number. The infectious diseases specialists are even more limited. If I talk about our country, the pulmonologists, so we can pool in different specialties, including surgeons, including the basic MBBS doctor, including the gynecologist also, and that can be tricky, especially when we see that we don't right now. So we have to think of something that this month is on, and the cases are still increasing. So that way, pulling in doctors, pulling in paramedics.
Give me some practical suggestions, man, because the doctors that I've been speaking to when I ask this question, they say, number one, don't make doctors run around for oxygen. Take that off our hands. Okay. That anybody can do. A doctor should not be worrying about morning, evening, night, where the oxygen is coming from. So take this off our hands. Number two, they say administrative tasks, take them off our hands. Let us be where we can save lives. A lot of doctors are sitting having to compile reports and data and this and this. So these are two obvious things. What are the tasks, ma'am, that you feel that somebody who's a medical student or can be trained? Like I'm told, taking a look, steroids administration, somebody can be trained, is not difficult. Up and down oxygen supply, depending on the SpO2 reading, is not very difficult. What is possible? What's not possible?
Possibility is that inventing the medicines, that regular medicine supply is being maintained. Then, as you mentioned, the regular oxygen supply has to be maintained. So this is all the administrative work that is being taken care by the administrator. And doctors, their role comes in the managing the patient, that which patient require what kind of treatment, and that can be seen on rounds. The instructions should be there, but the nursing staff, the paramedic staff, that they are actually implementing the orders. So this has to be there, that the overall manpower, everybody is doing their duties, but everybody, what I can say, Rishabh, is overwhelmed right now. The patient load, the number of cases, the way they are rising, we actually, most of the time we feel helpless, not able to take all the calls, not able to help them out with the beds. The situation is really bad.
Okay, I don't know if it merits
the options that we can do is
possible.
Rishabh, I have a suggestion.
Dr. Gilada, to what extent is a workforce in this nature a movable workforce? There are parts of the country where there is not as much stress, which might be stress 2 months later, but not right now. How much of this is a movable workforce? How much of that is possible and what is not possible?
Rishabh, we have a very good workforce, provided we see how to get it. We have final MBBS students. There are 600 medical colleges. Each college has 200 medical students in a batch. The final MBBS students are as good as doctors. They're just short of exam. It has been done during the Spanish flu days in British era. They deployed all these doctors. They given them after their degree some stipend and a certificate of appreciation. If you deploy them, there are 1 lakh doctors available. Another 1 lakh doctors were available. The PG entrance exam was not held this time. They postponed. Had they held that exam, we had 1 lakh or more than 1 lakh doctors, which were resident doctors available, but that was not taken. Let them be working class. Secondly, there are people who are 3 lakh doctors who are preparing for PG entrance exam. We don't know PG entrance, when are they going to happen. So we can recruit those doctors. Delhi government has issued an order, medical student nurses, MBBS doctor, postgraduate doctor can be deployed, and they have fixed up the remuneration also. So accordingly, we can do everywhere in the country, particularly in the hinterland, because in the cities like Mumbai or Delhi, you get a lot of doctors. But what happens in the interior places? So there, if we recruit in this fashion, there will be enough force available. Currently, we are not able to use force properly.
Okay, Dr. Gilada, how will that ameliorate the burden? Then can you have, literally can you have a doctor to spend some time with his family or to have a good night's rest? Will that become possible?
See, as a medical student, I work in emergency ward, and what I used to do that if I'm working for the night, I used to say, sir, you sleep now, sleep. If something happen, I'll call you. So at least 2 hours, 3 hours sleep he can get. Medical students which are already in touch with their seniors, they are already very good people. Yes, they can do injection, they can do IV line, they can look after oxygen, they can look after ventilator, they have been doing everything. As I said, they are just short of exam and degree. They are as good as doctors.
Okay, so that's an obvious human resource which needs to be applied. Okay.
So there is another,
Dr. Clare, go ahead, sir.
There is another possibility that we should request all the retired doctors from army, all the retired doctors from government services in various states, that if they can chip in at this time, they can also be a part of the COVID treatment, and that's also possible to be requested.
Yeah, I think the army has already requested. Anybody who's retired in the past 2 years have already been requested to come back, but that's...
I think anybody who retired after 60 up to 5 years, most of the people retired at 60, and a doctor is good enough, very, very good enough, even up to 70, 72, not an issue. So even people who retired 5 years back, they should be requested to come back.
Of course, then their own comorbidities are also an issue. Which
Rishabh, you ask them if they have a vaccination certificate. Rishabh, you ask them if they have a vaccination certificate. If they have been already vaccinated, at least they are immune. Or those who have been already infected, they have an antibody positive, they are immune. So let these people come and help.
Not, as we've learned, not perfectly immune, but maybe slightly.
But the chances are very, very low. You cannot go by every, that way, you cross the road, you can die in traffic accident also.
No, but the chances, unfortunately, are not low, sir. I think we are beyond anecdotal evidence of people who have received 1 shot and 2 shots and still gotten sick.
Sir, I'm not saying 2 shots. I'm saying 2 shots with 15 days one, then you get a certificate called vaccination passport. That should be issued to everybody.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, we don't know. And anybody who can say they know for sure, then that's not science. We don't know yet is the answer. So it's giving you some immunity. Are there breakthrough infections? Yes. Are they greater than 0.004%? Oh, absolutely they are. Dr. Wali, what are the options, sir? Because I'm just trying to figure out areas to lessen burden. Like I said, I have 2 examples, which are obvious ones. Don't make doctors run around for oxygen, which is what they're having to do right now. And free them from administrative tasks. These are 2 obvious things. What other burdens that can be removed right now, which should be taken over by others?
No, when we are talking of burden, Rishabhji, we mean that patients should be triaged. Yeah. Triage of the patient, careful triage of the patient. Sensitive people keep calling doctors 10 times a day whose oxygen saturation is 96. And really sick people don't have oximeter in their house and they are having saturation of 80 and not breathing properly. So a careful triage by educating people like you people are doing is the first step to reduce the burdens on the hospital and all this noise about oxygen and the patients not getting bed. So something has to be done at a war footing level on this, that there should be a careful selection of the patients who are going to the hospital. And then sufficient number of ambulances should be available. We saw a great number of ambulances in the past when there was that scheme state-wise. Huge number of ambulances were purchased. I don't know where have they gone. So patients are not getting transport. They are not getting properly triaged. And the attention should go to the village. The things in the villages have gone very, very bad. People are dying. Yesterday, my wife was talking to her Mamaji in a small village near Delhi, and he was saying there is a disease in every home, most likely corona in every home, and people are dying. They don't know about corona, and they are dying, and more people are suffering. More relatives are coming to visit them. There is no discipline left. They are not wearing masks. So we are in a very bad situation. Talking about metropolitan condition, is just a small tip of the iceberg.
I agree with you.
Since you are talking about the problem, I'm saying with the open heart that this corona has now penetrated our rural population,
Oh, absolutely
and
right.
very bad days to be seen, and this will be unmanageable.
And we are
It will
not,
be
and we
unmanageable.
are, for the love of God, not deciding that there needs to be some sort of national outlook. It's still the states figuring out. All the borders are open, flights are still taking off. I just don't understand. If you can't get an RT-PCR for a 6-person, how are you getting an RT-PCR for somebody to fly? It doesn't make sense. Imagine how many people are flying in this country. So if 30, 40, 50, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 5 lakh people are flying, are we saying all 5 lakh are taking RT-PCR tests? That means 1 out of 3 RT-PCR tests in the country is for flying?
No, no.
That's mind-numbing.
They are coming also. See, some countries have banned Indian flights, Indian
We
people
find
coming.
nothing. I mean,
And it is a great disrespect to what we were shouting in the last few months, that we have conquered corona. If you see,
Okay,
this shows, and now people are now actually talking what mismanagement we have shown to the world. It
Okay.
is really very, very shameful for me to talk about it, but this the world is talking about it. How can I escape?
I just want to just get some practical ideas into this conversation. Dr. Vaidya, what are the 3 or 4 obvious things which you as a doctor face, okay, which will help you? Would it be somebody to take your calls, okay, to direct emergency cases to you? Because right now, even if you, I'm sure, get off duty, you get 20 people calling you, okay, so you can't eat a meal, can't get sleep. What are the basic tasks that, which do not require years of medical expertise, which can be bifurcated away from doctors to others? What can be done?
One thing is that we get a lot of calls regarding the diet that they can take. So there can be dietitians who can be involved in this, who can give the guidance about what diet, because corona, a lot of apprehension is there in a COVID patient, what to eat, what not to eat. So dietitians can come into play, chest physiotherapy. We explain the patient all the time how to go for the exercise, breathing exercises. Actually, chest physiotherapy can help in that. One more thing I like to add regarding RT-PCR test, that RT-PCR test is not required for you to come out of the isolation.
Correct.
This is as per the government guidelines, correct? So
Correct.
don't waste the RT-PCR to come out of the isolation. If you had a mild disease, don't go for RT-PCR test. Don't arrange for it surrounding. RT-PCR has to be done.
Yeah. So taking those calls, but so let's reduce the calls to the actual SOS cases where people are having whatever 90.
People have fever, people is having oxygen oxygen saturation is falling, a severe cough is there, or such any health concern is there, like sugar is coming high. So that is the time when the patient should connect with the doctor. Otherwise, a dietitian can come in the room. The chest physiotherapist can come in the room. So this can actually...
Yeah, because you don't need a doctor to say take paracetamol if you're 105, 100 to 101 temperature. That we already know. You only need a doctor when you're having SpO2 problems, or you have to then worry about steroids and other things. Then you need doctor's consultation.
The fever is actually 103, 104. That means you might be in the cytokine storm.
Okay. So what can we do to at least this kind of the burden, Dr. Claire, which is when you are on shift and then off shift, trying to then organize things for other people, maybe in your own family. What can be outsourced? What is not possible to outsource?
See, Rishabh, what you said is very right. First of all the administrative things should be taken away from the doctors. Like you said, oxygen arrangement, this arrangement, that arrangement. The second thing which is really bothering me, and also it's bothering, I think, other doctors also, that there are a lot of people calling you doctors anytime. They don't care about the time. They don't care about time at all. It may be 10 p.m., 11 p.m. They just call the doctor. So I think the people of this country should understand that calling the doctors again and again should not be the routine. Only in a dire emergency they should call, number one. Number two, people who are on duty, actually, they should not be having mobile phone. It's a bad thing. They are working in the ward and somebody is calling from outside. There is a paging system. The doctors in the hospital, they can communicate with each other, but people from outside should not be allowed to call them. They disturb them in working. It's very difficult to work like that.
It's important to understand that.
So all non-administrative work should be away. Number one. Number two, no telephone calls to these people when they are on duty. Number three, restrict the number of hours these people have to work, and after that they should take rest. And as I said before, to increase the number of doctors all specialties of doctors should be recruited to work for the
All
police.
specialties, medical students. I think Dr. Devi Shetty has also been pointing out that, as Dr. Gilada has over here, as Dr. Wali has, we have to now take this very seriously, because in a crisis, 2 or 3 weeks, we can all stretch ourselves, okay, and manage. But now we know this is not 2 or 3 weeks. This is going to be at least 2 or 3 months, maybe more, because the wave is going to shift. It's shifted from Bombay to Delhi, and it eventually now is hitting everywhere else. Practical things can be done. We need to start doing them rapidly. The faster we do them, we can probably keep up with this. The only other option is a lot of people die, because if at this point of time, I don't think any of us believe only 3,000 people a day are dying in this country. I don't think any of us believe that anymore. So
Much more are dying.
it's
No doubt about it.
there are no options there. I'm going to thank you and for your service and crack on. Let's hope that through public awareness, a little bit of effort that is done. For example, it does matter. I've had 4 COVID cases in my house, and after everybody's recovered, no RT-PCR test was required. You waited 3 days, no fever, cleaned the room, okay, and you're fine. Drink lots of water. These kind of logics can apply without having to call up the doctor. Do I get a test done? Don't get a test done. Wasn't required.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.